This is a story of revenge. Delicious, ice-cold revenge. But to tell this story, first I have to go way back. My family come from the flat, boring middle of Indiana. So when my dad got offered a job out west, my mom said, "We're taking it." So they bought a brand new 1965 cherry red Volkswagen Bug, packed up the whole family, and headed for California. At that time, the whole family consisted of my mom, my dad, my much admired big sister Cynthia, who was 5, and me, who was just short of 4. And technically, there was another person in the family. This is how that happened. About 6 months before we left for California, my mom went out and got a baby, even though she already had a baby, which was me. And I know she regretted it right away, because all it did was just lie there and cry if you poked it enough. So I'm thinking, brand new start in California, a perfect opportunity to leave the baby behind. But my parents absolutely insisted on bringing the baby with us. We moved to Santa Barbara and settled on the Riviera. And after a couple of years, my mom went out and got another baby. But this time I was 6 years old, and my mom had found the cutest baby that ever was. In fact, it was the precious baby sister Jenny. So now the family consisted of my mom, my dad, much admired big sister Cynthia, me, the precious baby sister Jenny. And, if you can believe it, we still had the other one, the one we brought from Indiana. But now she was old enough to get in my toys and follow me everywhere I went and copy everything I did. She had a name, which was Christina. But I called her the Little Black Cloud. Big sister Cynthia and I shared a room, and my sister, who went on to become a magazine editor, spent her days reading and thinking about things, and at night she always had something to share. So one night, just as I was about to go to sleep, she said, "Did you ever wonder what would happen if a bloody hand reached out from under the bed and grabbed you by the throat?" I had totally never wondered that. But now it was all I could think about, right? So I had such a great thing to think about, right? I had to share it with somebody. But who to tell? Who to tell? I couldn't tell the precious baby sister Jenny, because she might get scared. But there was someone. Christina. She was so excited I was paying attention to her. She came right over where I could tell her, "Christina, did you ever wonder what would happen if a bloody hand reached out from under your bed and grabbed you by the throat?" I could tell by how big her eyes got that she had never wondered that. But I knew late at night she would now. So the years went by, and big sister Cynthia and I went off to college, And precious baby sister Jenny and the little black cloud were still at home, as was that Volkswagen. But the years had not been kind. That cherry red paint had oxidized to a dull reddish brown. Years of teenage drivers had dented in those big Volkswagen fenders. And every time there was a new dent, my dad would run out with a can of black spray paint and spray it to stop the rust. I don't know. So it was this dull reddish brown, misshapen lump with black streaks all over it. And we called it the scab. So I was visiting at home, and my mom needed a few things from the store, one of which was a bottle of ketchup, which you need to remember because it's important to the story later on. So normally this would be a job for one person, but not in the scab. The battery had died, and no one had bothered to replace it, but it wasn't as big of a problem as you might think, because we lived on the Riviera. As long as you parked pointing downhill, you could just kind of roll out, pop the clutch, and it would start right up, right? Only problem was you had to keep the engine running until you were back pointing downhill again. And it was pouring down rain. And it had developed this malfunction where the right windshield would windshield wiper would flop off the windshield. And they were linked together somehow, so they'd sort of just twitch there on the side. Until the person sitting shotgun would roll down the window and reach out and flick them back up onto the windshield. So someone needed to drive. Perfect person for that job, me. Somebody needed to sit shotgun and reach their torso out into the rain and keep flipping the windshield wipers back up. And the perfect person for that job, the little black cloud. So we headed down together to the Safeway that used to be at the corner of Chapala and Victoria, where they just opened that new public market, and we pulled into the parking lot. Now, somebody needed to sit in the warm, dry car and listen to the radio and keep the engine running. Perfect person for that job, me. Somebody else needed to go out in the mud and the rain and get the groceries. Perfect person for that job was the little black cloud. So she went in for the groceries, which included what? Ketchup. And pretty soon she came back out again. Those old Volkswagens, remember, the engine was in the back and the trunk was in the front. So when you opened up the trunk hood, the person sitting in the passenger compartment couldn't see what was going on in front of the car. So she's up there unloading the groceries, which include what? Ketchup, right? And I'm thinking, what is taking her so long? So I decide what I'm going to do. Well, first I got to tell you, those old Volkswagens, the glove compartment was like a door in the dashboard, and it was attached to this sort of flimsy box that sat in the trunk. But on the scab, that had long ago disappeared. So now the glove box was sort of a communicating door between the passenger compartment and the trunk. So I figured I would open up that door and yell up, "What are you doing?" So I bent my face over right in front of the glove box door, and I'm just about to open it when suddenly it pops open and a bloody hand reaches out and grabs me by the throat.